Arena Breakout Infinite's first major content update since launch has just dropped. The new season is called Ignition, and I got to play it early. Today we're taking a look at what it brings to the table, including a new PvP-focused map, new guns, tons of new attachments, a quick draw system for pistols, a litany of balance improvements, and more. Let's check it out.
So if you haven't heard about Arena Breakout Infinite, it is a free-to-play extraction shooter with a military theme to it that's just far more accessible than you might think. It very strategically removes some of the tedious complexity that you might expect from genres like this and just lets you focus on accessibility, building your kit, and getting into the action much quicker. I did a pretty extensive look at this game back when it first launched as an open beta, and since then it's clear the devs have been making tons of changes, both progressing the game forward and fixing things based on player feedback. So when the devs reached out to me to give me early access to Season 2 content and also sponsor today's video, I was very eager to see what they've been working on. And if you want to check out Arena Breakout Infinite for yourself, use my link in the video description to grab the game for free. Now there's a bunch of new features to look at, but the highlight of Season 2 for me is the new map, Northridge. This location feels pretty different in that it's very PvP focused. Most of the other maps have 2 or 3 major points of interest that sort of divide all the players in a match. So if your squad goes to one area, you'll probably run into a handful of enemy players and not the whole server. But on Northridge, there's a massive hotel complex that pretty much everyone gravitates to. Maybe it's just because it's new and cool and kind of the hot zone, and I can see why people would enjoy it if you want some faster paced combat. I want to talk about some of the cool stuff that happened here in just a second, but there's of course tons of other areas on this map to check out, like the cable car station up to the north and the sewage plant. Players are going to be hitting up these locations a lot to complete their missions from vendors. A couple of my raids focused on the sewage plant and some other areas of the map, like this cool looking dam building. The sewage plant is surrounded by hills and trees, so it's kind of a perfect ambush spot, and as no surprise, there was plenty of action here. I spent a couple of raids exploring this location, and honestly it feels like a traditional team deathmatch map in some ways. There's a handful of lanes through the areas, lots of cover, and some power positions that kind of overlook some key locations. It's kind of cool how the devs have segmented up the map into smaller areas that play out very differently. Now each point of interest on this map feels pretty unique visually. The layouts of the buildings and the set dressing in them, like the military crates and trash, really make them feel inhabited and gritty. There's also smaller points of interest like this campsite that's almost kind of eerie. There's just something unsettling about a vacant campsite, which is also aided by the dynamic weather system. One of the newer features in Arena is its dynamic weather that can give you sunny, cloudy, and rainy conditions. This was actually my first time checking out the weather feature, and it definitely makes the levels feel far more realistic and varied. Also, just having a firefight in the rain is just cool. But getting back to the star of the show, the hotel on this map is wild. It's a sprawling complex that'll clearly be a high traffic spot for missions, loot, and especially the PvP combat. Pretty much every match I played, there ended up being a massive firefight at the hotel. And despite it being a huge complex with multiple floors, tons of rooms, and dozens of corridors, it never felt like I was in a total labyrinth. The layouts of most buildings in Arena are very logical and easy to read at a glance. In multiple raids, my squad and I ran into hostile NPCs and other players roaming the hallways. Being able to both know where I was going without being familiar with the map and also use the hotel rooms to my advantage to avoid enemies was kind of satisfying, especially on my first time playing through the place. Map knowledge can be everything in games like this, and having a straightforward design philosophy for buildings is just refreshing. At one point, my remaining squad mate got ambushed from behind while clearing a corridor, and I was the last man standing. And waiting for my enemy to poke his head around the corner, knowing it was his only angle to push, really just tipped the scales in my favor. And I was able to do this with knowledge that I had just learned moments before after clearing that same hallway myself. Now, of course, the new season brings new guns as well. I got a chance to try out the new AK-12 and MCX assault rifles. There's also 3 new pistols and the SVTU semi-automatic rifle to play with. Visually, the AK-12 looks extremely slick since it's basically a modernized AK with contemporary furniture and attachment options. But the MCX feels like an absolutely futuristic Gucci gun. I tended to stick with some very basic attachments like suppressors and vertical grips, but I could easily really see these guns becoming staples of the game since they handle well out of the box and accept very common ammo, which is super useful. I was really jamming with the MCX with its faster rate of fire and more compact design. It just works better for close quarter interior fights where range is less important than mobility and being able to just panic mag dump. Now, Season 2 also has some new modes like Team Deathmatch and Secure Ops that will let you get in and out of matches quicker to test out weapons and techniques with reduced stakes. This is fantastic for learning weapons and mechanics, and I think all extraction games need something like this. Secure Ops are basically like raids where you just don't lose your equipped weapons if you die. So you can still learn the maps, learn loadouts, and loot some valuable gear without running the risk of losing something you spent a long time customizing. There's of course new cosmetic stuff like a new battle pass with cosmetic unlocks, both a free and paid tier of progression. And there's also a bunch of new weapon attachments which you can buy from vendors or loot in a match. There's enough new stuff here that I'm willing to bet if you have your go-to loadout right now, this new season's going to bring some attachments that you may want to consider upgrading to. Now, honestly, I thought I was going to have a rougher time getting back into Arena due to just the more hardcore nature of military extraction shooters. But as I was reminded, Arena Breakout is very much designed around accessibility. Sure, it can be punishing, and the second you let your guard down, you can be toast, but it's not as big of a setback, nor is it bogged down by the busy work mechanics of other games. The inventory accessibility features like easy weapon crafting, automatic sorting, and the ability to quickly find and buy any piece of gear you might want gets the inventory management side of the experience out of the way so you can focus more thought and energy into the actual boots on the ground gameplay. And to that, with the maps designed to be easier to learn but still offering tons of depth with stuff like special locked doors and hidden areas, the end result is a tactical shooter that any FPS fan can drop into, have a good time with, and there seems to be a decent amount of depth there. And I did just drop into it, and I didn't feel like I needed 100 hours of playtime just to start becoming competitive. And I'd imagine a lot of that further depth comes from the crafting and deeper weapon knowledge and deeper map details as you play more and more. Overall, I think it's a solid update, building upon the work that the devs have been doing since before Season 2 with their dynamic weather and quality of life changes. The new map is certainly the big centerpiece, but the devs have done a lot to keep the rest of the game fresh. There's new extraction points on all of the maps, there's new missions and rewards to collect across all of the maps, all of the available loot has been increased, and there's even improvements to the important quality of life stuff like default secure case is now a 2x2, which gives you more room for additional items. Now, if anything you saw here looks fun, check out my link in the description to grab Arena Breakout Infinite for free. And if you enjoyed this overview of Season 2's content, drop me a like, subscribe for more content, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.